Hi, everybody. Here we are. We're pretty much right on time tonight. It's Dan Cirucci. I'm here with Christine Flowers. We
Christine figured
promised,
out how to hook into the system, unlike last time where she couldn't get in. So, hi, everybody.
right? We promised we would be together again, and here we are. And Christine, I just want to make sure we are in fact on Facebook and Twitter, um, and that we're coming through live. There we are on Facebook. I see, and let's check on Twitter as well and make sure. Yes, let's see. And there we are on Twitter. So we are live. And so folks, you can also get this on my YouTube channel. And then Christine, I'm going to put it um on dancirucci.com. Okay.
Okay,
Um,
great.
so everybody, and then you can go to it on Facebook now and share to your Facebook page.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Okay, that would be helpful.
I don't. How do I do that? Because then I don't want to lose
Go
you.
to your Facebook page. You go to my Facebook page on Facebook.
Hold on. I mean, okay. So I just
Oh,
minimized you.
no, wait! I lost your picture.
Yeah, because I can't get to Facebook. Let's just forget about me going
Okay,
on.
you can share it afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can share it afterwards.
Let's do
Okay.
it.
Okay. So, Christine, as I said, oh, wait, I did something. Oh, there we are. As I said, Rick Short is going to join us at 20 minutes after he's been, or 25 after he's been fighting the Cherry Hill School Board, which has gone woke. Okay. And it's a whole big story, but we're going to get to that. But, Christine, what is uppermost in your mind tonight?
Taylor Swift has a new album. No, I know. I was being really crummy and mean. First of all, guys who are listening and watching, this is not just a one-off. Dan and I are going to be getting together regularly in the run-up to the election. We're going to try and do this on a monthly or bi-weekly basis. So
Right.
get ready because we've got a lot to talk about.
But I have to tell people Christine has a very fluid schedule. And we're never quite sure because, she's a very successful legal practitioner.
If I were successful, I would actually have a better handle on my calendar. But no, we are going to do this because this is an incredibly important election. And I will tell you, Danny, I was joking about Taylor. She's a sweet girl. I posted something. I posted a little video before we went on. I was walking down the Avenue of the Arts, and you know very well, in front of the Academy of Music, we have these bronze plaques in the pavement, which commemorate all of the great Philadelphia musicians, many of whom were songwriters, like Tom Bell, the Philly Sound. He was, Gamble and Huff and Tom Bell created the Philly Sound. Daryl Hall, John Oates, Carole King, so many great Philadelphians who also happen to be songwriters. So I said, it's great to be a songwriter. It's wonderful. So when people come to me and say, Taylor Swift is so wonderful because she writes her own songs, I took my camera and filmed those great names of people who created this legendary music. And I said, Taylor's a nice girl. Every single song she's ever written sounds the same. I was in love. He broke my heart. Art. Then I wrote a song about it. They all sound alike. So what I said was, I'm glad she writes her own songs. I'm sure she's a sweetheart. She's not obscene like Cardi B or some of the other famous women out there, but enough already. She's not legendary. She's not yet, or should not be, an icon. She writes her own songs. I write my own columns. You cook your own food. We wash our own faces. It's not hard, Danny. Okay, that's my Taylor rant. But there are
Well,
more important things.
she does have a huge following. I must admit, I really, really don't. Now, my granddaughters, at least two of my granddaughters, are totally enamored of her,
Of course
and
they
they're
are.
like 8 and 10 years old. Um, I must admit that she does have some kind of pull, some kind of hold,
Oh yeah.
and she's making an enormous amount of money, but we don't know in the business that she's in. We really don't know how long she's going to be at the top. But even if she were to fall from the pedestal tomorrow, she's really set for the rest of her life. I mean, she can quit tomorrow and she's set for the rest of her life. If we never see her again, she could live a luxurious life of complete luxury from this point on.
She
Okay.
could have solved the problem with the funding for the war in Ukraine. She could have single handedly sent all of the money that was necessary to Ukraine and to Israel. And we wouldn't have had this political infighting because Taylor has enough money. Taylor has that money. She is a gabillion billionaire.
Mhm.
So, I mean, listen, I make fun of her in kind of a mean girl way, but also in an older woman looking at this young woman saying, honey, it's great what you're doing, but don't don't step out of your role. Don't, stay in your lane. You write some songs that are nice, pulled from your diary. You dance well, you're very pretty. You haven't committed any felonies. You're a nice person, but don't pretend that you are the voice of a generation. Do not pretend that you should have any substantial influence on politics. Don't step out of
Right,
your lane.
right. But I think that when you reach that point of
I'm not sure
fame,
I understand.
when you reach that point of fame and fortune, you begin to have such a huge opinion of yourself, and there's a lot of pressure on her to speak out. Actually, I think up to this point, compared to a lot of other people, she's been reasonably restrained. Okay. Um, I was reading about somebody else that they were trying to tempt to speak out. I think it was a country music star. And some people think that Taylor Swift is a country music star. She's not. Okay. She's a pop star.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, she never was. She started out a little bit in Nashville, but she was not a country music singer ever.
right. Right. So, so I think there's a lot of pressure. Um, I am 560 pages, Christine, into Barbara Streisand's 800-page memoir. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Barbara Streisand. I was in the beginning, in the very beginning, when she was a young, up and coming singer.
Yeah.
But of course, as we know, Barbara Streisand got so big and so infatuated, if you will, with herself and gained such a sense of self-importance. And you see, this often happens.
Yeah.
That, however, she apparently, as far as if I get this right, has had a number one hit in 6 or 7 consecutive decades. Okay, I think she's the only person ever to have done that.
That's an
So
icon. That
she is
is
iconic, right?
yeah. Yeah. That's Elvis level. There are very few people that could fit into that, one person that could fit into that kind of a role. Elvis did. Barbara Streisand, Marilyn Monroe in a different field. When you talk about legends, when you talk about take a name,
Yeah,
Barbara, you say Barbara, you know
that's it.
exactly who you're talking about. You say
Right,
Elvis, well, there are Elvis Costello, but you know that Elvis is Elvis. Marilyn, obviously, Marilyn. Madonna, because there aren't that many other people named Madonna except the real
right,
Madonna, the one that we love and venerate.
right.
So yeah, I mean, listen, Barbara is she's a brilliant songstress. My favorite Barbara album is I forget the name of the album, but it's the one with the song Stony End, where she does Laura Nyro's great classics. You know, going down to Stony End,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never wanted to go. You know, those old songs are the ones that I really love. But she's brilliant. Her politics are repellent, and her personality is kind of repellent now too, but you cannot deny her talent. Taylor Swift is different. I do not see that overwhelming talent in her. Barbara is iconic. Taylor, little girls like Taylor, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but don't call her an icon. And
Her
I'm
career,
sorry, the Eras tour, that is so self-important. The era of Taylor Swift. And then what's that thing about Taylor's version? Taylor's version of what? Taylor's version of the song that Taylor wrote. So what is that about? Anyway, okay, we can move on to something more important.
what before we go to our guest, I want to ask you, Christine, if the presidential election were held today, who wins?
You know, the last time we talked about this, Danny, I said that I was having a really hard time thinking about voting for Donald Trump.
Right?
Um,
You did.
that has changed. I now, as Megyn Kelly said on her podcast, there is no option. There is no other alternative. You cannot vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden will, if he is given another term, he himself will not be running the government. It's not a conspiracy
Oh
theory.
no,
It's the
no.
fact. He's a feeble old man. He's not in possession of his faculties now. He caused 3 wars. Well, no, the withdrawal from Afghanistan was not a war. He just basically condemned the women of Afghanistan to be back in slavery, to be enslaved again. Israel and obviously Ukraine. No, he didn't invade any of those countries, but because of his weakness, because of the fact that our allies and our enemies have no respect for him or have very little respect for him and don't feel that he's a strong leader, this was allowed to happen on his watch. And we can go into all the cultural issues as well, abortion and trans and, Me Too due process for young men on campuses. What he just did with the executive order on college campuses is repellent, angers me as a woman who feels very strongly that young men are under attack in this society. So if push came to shove, and it is now because it's a binary choice at this point, Donald Trump has to be the choice. And I do believe that there are a lot of people who are going to make the same calculation that I just made. People who are holding their noses and who are saying, oh my God, why do we have this choice again? Because I am not wholeheartedly, full-throatedly thrilled with Donald Trump. It
Right.
is, I must vote for him because of the alternative. So I do think,
So if the
I think
election
Donald
were held
Trump.
today, who wins?
I think Donald Trump. If it were held today,
Hmm,
Donald Trump.
I wish I could
We
be that
still have to go
confident.
through some criminal prosecutions. I don't know. There may be some very skittish and, just sort of like, I don't know, squeamish voters out there who may say, I don't know if I can vote for a guy who's being accused of felonies or God forbid, convicted of a felony. They may very well just stay home. They may not vote for Biden, but they may stay home. In which case, then it's a toss-up. I really don't know. But I know that the Democrats are getting out the vote. I know they've already started. I
Oh
know
yeah.
I mean, I know I keep getting texts and emails because remember I registered as a Democrat in the
Yeah,
last primary so that I could vote against Larry Krasner. I
right.
mean, they must still have me on a list somewhere because then I re-registered as an independent, but I'm still getting these things and they are definitely on the move. And
Oh,
Republicans better get their acts in gear
oh, they're very
because
well organized and they have a lot of money. And I say if the election were held today, Biden wins.
do you think so really?
Yeah, I do because Democrats always come home. They always come back into the fold, and minorities, as much as there seems to be a larger than ever minority vote for Trump, especially like Hispanics, and people
Very
are
much so.
saying black people as well, particularly young black men. Um,
How about Jewish
the
voters?
Democrats
How
have a
about people
way,
who are disgusted with what the Democrats have done? Jewish voters are feeling under assault, and I have a feeling
but
that a lot of
Jewish
them.
voters, I wouldn't rely on them leaving. I wouldn't rely on it.
Are you sure, Danny? Because I've been hearing
I'm
from a
telling
lot
you.
of my Jewish
And
friends who said they
also,
cannot believe.
Biden he is a ferocious campaigner. The Democrats are absolutely ferocious. They know how to stay united. They're disciplined. You know, it's not smarts that wins elections. It's discipline, discipline, discipline.
But have you seen him recently on the campaign trail? Did you see him at the
I,
Wawa in Boone
Christine,
Township? Have you seen him?
I
He
I
doesn't
saw
look
him
fierce.
the last time when he hardly didn't campaign at all. I saw him the last time and he won.
Yeah, but that was
Now, I
that was
hope
COVID.
I'm
That was
wrong.
COVID. That was
Everybody,
understandable.
listen, I hope I'm wrong. But I've got to be realistic about this. I've been involved in a lot of campaigns and a lot of elections. I used to be a Democrat. I know Democrats. I know the party. I was in deep. Let me tell you, they're very united. They're very disciplined. They have a singular mindset. They play to win, and politics is their whole life.
But
Unlike Republicans who are too busy working and making a buck.
but Dan, I hear what you're saying, and I trust you implicitly. Of all people that I know who are political activists who've had this experience, I trust you above all of them. But I mean, read the room with Jewish voters. What is happening right now is beyond belief. There are anti Semitic Nazi like protests going on at Columbia University. I have a cousin who graduated from Columbia. I should call him and ask him if he's proud of his alma mater. There is there are anti-Semitic attacks we have not seen. I'm expecting a crystal knocked here. I'm
Oh my
expecting
God,
that.
I hope not.
No,
I
I
hope
see
not.
it. I
But,
see it. I see the swastikas
you know,
on on
you're in the middle of it
synagogues.
being in Philadelphia, right
I
there in
am.
Center City, Philadelphia. You're in the middle of it, Christine,
There
and
is
you better
vicious
be careful. Be very
anti-Semitism, Dan.
careful. Mm,
It is disgusting. And for any Jewish voter to look at that, and it's coming from the left, it's not coming from the right. Finally, when somebody says to me, what about the white supremacists in Charlottesville? I'm going to say, look at Columbia. Those aren't right
mm,
wing white
yeah,
supremacists, those are leftist. And by the way, I said this too. A lot of people said, oh, it's because we have this fluid border and all these immigrants come in and they're doing it. These are not immigrants doing this, Dan. These are homegrown lovers of terrorism. These are kids from Gen Z and late millennials and whatever else, whatever the that next generation is.
right.
These are kids who have been poorly raised by their parents from my generation, and they truly are domestic American terrorists in their philosophy because they embrace the idea of Israel being a genocidal entity. And they are scaring me.
Yeah.
And they're Americans, They're not immigrants because, as you said, most immigrants are much more conservative, at least in their social views and social
Most
policies.
of the ones that I've met, yes. Christine, this is a good segue, though, into the whole issue of propaganda, indoctrination, and what I call unithink, okay, uh, in our schools, because it's starting way down in the public schools. And we have with us, I'm going to bring him on, Rick Short. He's waiting here now. So let me bring Rick on. I'm adding him. Here he is. And here's Rick. And folks, I want to introduce Rick by saying he's a Cherry Hill taxpayer and parent. He has 3 kids attending the local public schools, yet he's unable to enter their school or even put a foot on school property. He's been locked out. Now, I've known Rick for quite a while. I know him to be a responsible taxpayer, citizen, and by all accounts, an upstanding citizen. Yes, he is passionate, and he has opinions, and he gets angry, and he has frequently confronted the school board, okay? But why is he being banished? Through appearances at board meetings and an active social media presence, he has questioned everything from school bus safety precautions to school discipline policies and the district's tilt toward progressive ideology, embracing critical race theory. He says he really believes that he feels that is his responsibility. Get this, recently, and I saw this clip from the school board meeting, a school board member, an elected school board member, appeared to be so rankled by Rick Short's critiques that he railed against people questioning the board's policies, asking everyone, and this is a quote, to quote, shut them down, and compared the critics to modern day Nazis. Now I say, you better be careful when you compare somebody to a Nazi, because if you do it capriciously, and I see it being done capriciously a lot these days, if you do it capriciously, you dishonor the 6 million plus that were killed by the actual, okay? And so when Rick accused the local school board of using students as puppets to lobby the state legislature for added funding, he was confronted after a board meeting by the student representative on the board, who told him, "Don't bring up my constituents again and don't insult them." This was followed by a letter from the superintendent of schools banishing Rick from school property indefinitely. Now,
how can they do that? How can they banish him? How can they banish you, Rick, from a public forum where your tax dollars are used to maintain that building and that institution? What authority do they have? I'm assuming they haven't gone to the police to try and establish that you're a threat to the public safety. So on what basis are they trying to keep you out?
I don't know if we want to go down that alley, but they know what they're doing. That there has been a case before, and my legal advice or my lawyers recommended just to let it go. And if they stop you from going to a school board meeting or stop you from going to a sporting event to watch your child, then look out.
Yeah, but Rick, what if you want to go to a parents' night at the school? You know, like the teachers come in for teacher conference.
Yeah, it's to the point of ridiculous. And I'm sorry I have to waste the Cherry Hill police time, but I had we had a lunch forgotten. I had to call the police. We had a cell phone forgotten. I had to call the police. They had to bring it in for me. The other day, my daughter had to go in early for a sporting event. I had to bring my other kids in. I had to get an escort in. It's just outrageous. I think I'm the first. I might be the first person in the state for this ever to happen to.
You know what
Now,
they're doing?
Rick-
They're targeting your kids. They're making life more difficult for your children because they're the children of the father who's basically being shunned and not allowed in the school. And that's abusive. I mean, I think you need to look at it from the kids' perspective. Obviously, it's wrong what they're doing to you because you have every right to have a voice in this. But your
Right.
kids are being bullied by these administrators.
Right.
Have your attorneys looked at that aspect of this?
I've never. No, we never brought that up. But they did check case laws, and there is a case law that it favored the district over a parent.
Now,
I don't
Rick,
know. I don't know Jersey law,
Yeah.
so but that seems
like
very
I said,
crazy.
Rick is very active on social media, and he does do a lot of videotaping and recording. And Rick, this student representative on the board, he's a high school student.
Correct. Yep. He
And-
sits right alongside of the board. Yes.
Now, he's a student rep on the board, but he doesn't have a vote on the board.
That is correct.
He wasn't elected by the people.
Well, he was elected supposedly by the high school he
Okay, he was
represents.
elected by the high school, but he wasn't elected like an elected board member, like by the voters.
Correct.
Okay, so he confronts you in the hallway
As I'm leaving,
as you're leaving in the hallway after a board meeting where you spoke.
correct.
You spoke at that meeting because Rick attends the meetings regularly and he speaks.
Which is his absolute
Yeah.
right. As a
Now, the
taxpayer.
first thing I'm wondering, Rick, this makes me wonder. This young man who is the student representative to the school board, why didn't he challenge you at the public meeting right then and there? He's allowed to speak up and say something, right?
Right. Sure.
So
Sure.
why didn't he challenge you?
You know, the thing is, what's happening in Cherry Hill is the truths are coming out. Right. There's truths about how we speak and what we say. And what's happening is when you ask questions like, show me any proof diversity, equity, and inclusion works, it drives these people absolutely crazy that are listening. Show me any proof that how we can improve student diversity. You can't improve student diversity unless you move houses. So I constantly question these things, and it drives these people absolutely insane.
But he confronted you as you're leaving. Now, when he first came to you, he seemed friendly.
Yeah. I'm like, wow.
And you were welcoming a discussion with him. But then he became accusatory. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
you made a recording of this.
That's right. I have a recording. And there's, nobody would believe what this student said to me. So I have a recording. You can't deny it.
And you put it on the internet.
Correct.
Okay. And of course, this did not sit well with the school district.
Correct.
But I can't understand how you're a threat. What did the letter from the superintendent said that you were a threat to, like, the safety of the
that the student didn't know he was being recorded, and it's going to cause harm, and then they made they accused me that I've posted photos of 6-year-olds on my different various websites, and that is true. But what they don't know is they were public photos. These were public photos of kids protesting. Say, because now in second grade, we have no hate poster protest where they do posters in the classroom, and then they go around the outside of the school and they hold their posters. I mean, it's crazy what they're doing.
These
to
pictures
second
were
graders.
on social media already.
Yes, correct. The photos were on social media. That's where I got them from.
Okay.
So had the
Christine,
school had so the school had actually uploaded the photos then, or the
Correct.
teachers? Yeah, then they absolutely have no claim that you violated the privacy of the children because they
Right.
themselves did it, and we would assume that they would have had to have gotten permission from the parents to do that because in fact it is they are minors, and so the parents would have had to have authorized that. And if the parents authorized that, it's not like it is not a limited authorization because once those pictures go on the internet, you cannot control who's going to get them, who's going to access them. So I don't see where Rick
But I
could
mean,
be
let
held
me
liable.
let me ask both of you: is it normal to have like 2 different protests a year in second grade to have them practice, do posters in their classroom, and then to
It should
walk
not
around
be.
the? See, it's insane, right? So this is the kind
well,
of thing I say. It's crazy that they're doing.
was this part of the No Place for Hate
Yes,
campaign,
no
Rick?
place for
Okay.
hate and Ruby
So,
Ridge
yeah.
protest,
So,
and like these
Christine,
are second graders.
the school district in Cherry Hill took an active part in the No Place for Hate campaign. And they gave out lawn signs, right? Rick, who gave them out? The PTA, or where did they come from?
They were no place for hate. Correct. No, they're the what's the other blue signs? What did they say? I can't remember off the top of
Hate
my head.
has no home here.
Yes, hate has no home here. Correct.
Right. Hate has no home here.
Right.
And who gave those out?
They were the PTA. Correct. PTA.
Okay.
PTA zone. Yeah.
And they were placed all over town, and the kids were part of this No Place for Hate.
Correct. Yeah, they have to sign the pledge on the wall in the elementary school. You have to sign it, be part of it. It's and you know you could have a whole hour story about this. Like every day you're thinking about, okay, no hate, no hate. No, why aren't they going to school thinking about, hey, let's love each other, let's love each other, let's love each. I mean, what's the message we're teaching our kids every day?
But by the way, can I ask you guys, because I'm not familiar with the Cherry Hill No Place for Hate campaign. Do they articulate exactly what they're not supposed to be hating? I mean, it's sort of like in a vacuum here. You're telling kids, don't hate, don't hate what? Kids don't go to school hating anyone or anything. And if you start doing that and start saying don't hate, the inference is your default position is a bigot. So don't do that.
I don't think kids' natural inclination is to hate.
But that's what this appears to be. It's like saying don't do that. Well, you're assuming that these poor kids are going to school, as little bigots and little racists. That's why I can't stand this whole hate has no home here campaign. Who says it does? It's like, come on, guys, don't. As Rick was saying, why don't we just have kids? Why are we teaching them this when we should be teaching them reading, writing, language? I used to be a language teacher. I taught
I
in
got
middle
to
and high
tell you,
school.
Christine, when
What?
I walk around Cherry Hill, and I've lived in this town. I'm in Cherry Hill right now. So is Rick. I've lived in this town for more than 30 years. Okay. When I walk through the neighborhoods of Cherry Hill, and I'm familiar with most of them, and I've walked through many of them, I don't think while I'm walking through there, boy, isn't this it's a shame there's such hate around here. I can feel that.
Yeah, I had no idea Cherry Hill was so filled with hostility. Terrible.
I
Poor
don't
guys.
feel like there's an aura or a specter of hate threatening me as I'm walking. Okay.
Yeah.
As Rick knows, I walk regularly in the Cherry Hill Mall because I do 8 to 9,000 steps a day. And
Good boy.
and the Cherry Hill Mall, if any of you have been there lately, believe me, when you walk through there, and I say this proudly, I think it's wonderful. It's very diverse, very diverse. You will see people of every race, ethnicity, and color in there. Okay.
Yeah.
When I walk through there, I I don't worry about hate, about people hating one another. I don't feel any sense of hatred or discrimination. Many of the people that work in the stores, in the retailing, are people of color. I don't, I'm not getting it. I don't see it. In fact, um, people hold doors open for me. They're respectful. They, if they,
Can I
I
can I
mean,
say can I say
one
something
day I
real
was
quick?
walking in there and a lady asked me, because I had a bit of a limp, I had twisted my ankle, and she asked me if I needed any help, and she took my arm. I don't get it, Christine. I don't know where it's coming from.
Can well can I posit a theory over here? Um, I'm a Danny. You know, I'm an immigration lawyer, so I
Right,
deal with people, all different languages, all different nationalities, all different
right,
religions, every single day. Saturday, I had three clients come in. Started out speaking French, segued into English because I don't speak Urdu, and the last client was because he was from Pakistan. And the last client I spoke Spanish because he was from Honduras. Um, they know, immigrants know when they're being used, and they're being what's exploited for political reasons. I have many friends who are gay, really many friends. It's like my best friends are gay. No, but I do. I have many friends who are gay. Many of them are conservative, and they hate the whole rainbow brigade. They hate the idea that there is that gays and lesbians and the LGBT community is under assault, because they know that they are not, and they know that this is being used by a certain political orientation and philosophy to go after the other side. Immigrants, sexual minorities, religious minorities. There are so many different groups that are being used and exploited. And the hatred is, in so many instances, fabricated. There is so much more acceptance in this society than, I'm going to be very open about this, than the left would have you believe, than progressives would have you believe. Conservatives, with some very strong exceptions, are generally accepting. They generally have a larger tent, ironically enough, than progressives do. And so for me, this whole thing about hate has no home here and no place for hate is a way for a certain political philosophy, and again, I will say it, the left and progressives, to basically tar the other side by saying hate has no home here, and the only people that are spewing hate are the other side. So align with us, the Democrats, the leftists, the progressives, because those people hate you. And it's wrong to begin with, and it's really wrong when you enlist children into this. When you start using, and Rick is saying this, it's not normal for kids to be protesting. It's not normal for kids, even high schoolers, to have walkouts in the middle of the day because they're protesting what's going on in Gaza, or they're protesting what's going on at the border, or what
yeah,
have
and
you.
this has happened in Cherry Hill. There
Oh
have
yeah,
been
and Philly
walkouts.
too. Philly
Yeah,
as well.
there have been walkouts. And um, Rick, you feel like this is a form of intimidation.
Definitely intimidation. I'm not intimidated. I'm worried about other parents who want to speak up against this. It's not me. I'm
Well,
tough.
it will have a chilling
I
effect.
fought. Look, I fought the city of Newark over red light cameras. I fought in the lowest forms of government. So Cherry Hill thinks they're going to intimidate me. They're not. I'm going to keep coming. But the big thing that I think people need to understand is what's happening with our schools right now is they're using our kids as puppets, like I say, but let me explain how it's being done. So a student will come up and make a speech. They'll say DI is great. They'll say Black Lives Matter is not a hate group. And they'll say MLK is this, right? So what happens? The superintendent, it says right after the speech, he said, that was a brilliant speech. It was outstanding. It was courageous. Really?
Courageous.
He's wrong. He's wrong. The superintendent is wrong. So you can't really attack the kids, right? You can't attack the kids, but you can't get to the superintendent. That's a quote he did in December 19th. And they kept trying to shut me down during Black Lives Matter when I spoke about that they're a hate group. That's,
and that's part of what you mean when you say the kids are being used as puppets.
Right.
Which admittedly is a pretty strong word. Okay. But what I find here, Christine, too, that this is another tactic of progressives, liberals, okay? And you nailed it when you talked about using children, is they always come back, and this is it was a Nancy Pelosi thing too, and talk about this is for the children. And you are upsetting and unsettling our children.
Yeah, right.
You are frightening them. You are unsettling them, and we can't have that kind of thing. We are trying to protect, and we're looking out for the safety and well-being of our children, the children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, remember Hillary Clinton's It Takes a Village?
Right.
You're Italian, Dan. I'm Italian. We grew up in a community where the village really did take care of kids, in the sense that if you were doing something in the street and you were being a bad little kid, your neighbor could go up and paddle your rear end. And there was no problem, because everybody was involved in the welfare of the children. Hillary meant it in a different way, and she meant it in the way that Rick's, I think you're referencing with the school board, that they want to control how your child is going to be raised. You no longer have the right to have your religious beliefs, have your, whether you have them or you don't have them. You don't have the right to instill your own moral code. Your child is going to be raised by the school board, and the school board is a bunch of people who are elected, but not elected by every single parent obviously in Cherry Hill.
A very small number of people vote in those elections.
And it's one of the most important elections. That local election is one of the most important, and there should be much more of a turnout, but that's another topic for another day. So I think it is very dangerous. The old phrase, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, and also the child is father to the man. Everything starts with kids. So whoever has the contact and the power over children, educating children. And again, Dan, you were a teacher. I was a teacher. The power that you have. Those kids look up at you.
Tremendous.
Your every word, especially if they're younger kids. So it is extremely important that those teachers be accountable to parents. That it can't just be that once you drop a child off at 8:05 in the morning, you're not insulated. That's not a bubble that kid is in for 5 hours or 6 hours during the day.
Right.
And it's very unfortunate. I'm sorry, Rick, that you had to go through that. You are, unfortunately, you're not alone. There are a lot of parents who have been dealing with the same issues, as I'm sure you know, down in Virginia, in other parts of Pennsylvania. And they feel frustrated. And another problem is the media, because the media demonizes people like you. The mainstream media, let's say, and the NPR type media, where we just recently had NPR announcing that there are many different truths. That was so Orwellian when the CEO, Catherine Mayer of NPR, said that. There are many
They went and fired one of their own employees who criticized them.
Yeah, he resigned because they were punishing him. But it was an essential fire.
They were basically going to get rid of him.
Exactly.
Yeah. They don't want a diversity of views. They talk about diversity, but they don't want a diversity of views.
No, it's epidermal, literally. It's skin color, it's ethnicity, it is gender. These are the things, these are the key, these are the buzzwords. We want women, we want people of color, we want indigenous people, we want this, we want that. Do we want somebody who has a dissenting view from the progressive, the overall progressive?
No, no matter what their color is, no.
Not that diversity.
No, it's identity politics. But Rick, there's another thing going on in Cherry Hill. Cherry Hill recently picked a new school superintendent. They had a national search. And we see this so often, Christine. They had a national search, and then they went and picked somebody from the district, an insider. Okay.
Okay.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Rick. The person, they picked a new superintendent, and the school board's president, the woman who cheered the campaign of the
Oh
school
God.
board's president.
Oh God, I know where you're going, Dan. This is
Look at this.
I know where you're going. This is
Let
the
me see if
beauty.
I'm right. Let me see if I'm
No,
right.
you're spot on. You're
The
spot
school
on.
board president was part of the group that hired the superintendent. The woman who cheered the campaign of the school board president was then hired by the superintendent as his new executive assistant.
Oh my God.
And this woman was not previously working in education.
Oh, that's so incestuous. Oh my God.
I don't know her history. I don't know
We don't know
the
whether she wasn't working for Cherry Hill School District.
I don't believe so, but I don't know 100%.
We're not sure.
I'm not sure.
But she became a pretty high paid executive assistant. How much is she making now?
I believe the number's 80,000, 84,000, somewhere around there. It's in the 80s.
And then a couple of members of the school board tried to bring this up and tell the president that she had a conflict of interest. And what happened, Rick?
It kept going back and forth, heated, and then finally the school board president slammed the gavel and went into an executive session and shut the entire conversation down. I mean, Dan, this is the perfect example of what an ethics violation might look like. Like, we're not sure if an ethics violation occurred. I don't want to make any accusations,
Right.
but I mean, this is 101 ethics violation, and it happened live. Like, you can't say, oh, it didn't happen.
It's on tape.
It happened
It's on
live.
tape.
It's on tape. And I have it.
Because they videotape the school board meetings.
Right.
But Christine, as you know, and you've said, we see this happening in district after district where these people who, Christine, feel they are so enlightened and know so much better what is right for our children are in charge, and they really do not want to be disturbed by any questions.
Well, and we're talking about school boards right now, and that's probably the most glaring example. But there have also been different types of meetings, commissioners, board of commissioner and township meetings, and people are starting to find their voices. I don't know if it was COVID or if it was Donald Trump or what happened, but people, the rank and file, are no longer willing to allow these, what Katie Couric calls the elite, the intelligent ones, the intelligentsia. Remember, she said that people are upset because they have this hostility toward the intelligent elites. A couple of years ago, there was a situation in my my old home township, Haverford Township, and there was a young man who was a volunteer fireman, volunteer, not getting paid, did this on his own time. It was called the Bon Air Fire Company. And he had attended one or two Proud Boy meetings. He had not joined the Proud Boys, but he had attended one or two of those meetings. Because of that, there were people who online started defaming him, calling him a white supremacist, and they got him essentially fired from his non-paid job. He was released by the Bon Air Fire Company. Then, because of counter protests, they allowed him back in. And there was a township meeting where we were allowed to express our views about this. You had to see the faces of the township commissioners, how horrified they were when people came, like me, came up and started criticizing the township for demanding, because it was the township that had actually said to the Bon Air Fire Company, you need to get rid of this young man. And they were being criticized by people like me, and by the overwhelming majority of people in the audience were in support of this young man's First Amendment rights, freedom of association. Well, guess what happens? Screenshots and videos of people speaking, including me, were uploaded by Antifa members and wild left progressives onto social media, calling us Nazis, calling us white supremacists, calling us people who hate Black people and this and that. And when I saw this happening, I realized they're not used to people, rank and file individuals like Rick, like me, getting up there and voicing our opinions articulately with facts to back it up, because it never happened before. People didn't attend these meetings. They were boring, yawn, yawn, yawn. But people are finally beginning to find their voices and realize that this. And so there has been a lot of pushback and a lot of fear and a lot of anger on the part of these oligarchies, for want of a better term, these local oligarchies, these groups that had a stranglehold and a monopoly on the narrative. And they don't like having to open these meetings up to other people. So, I mean, I'm glad, Rick, that you're doing this and you're continuing to publicize it as best you possibly can. I'm very sorry. I mean, this is the first time hearing about it. I'm very, very sorry that you're being marginalized. I hope that your story has been written about. I hope that there are some at least friendly media in Jersey that are willing to highlight the fact that you're being essentially defamed by the municipality, by Cherry Hill. And we just have to keep speaking out. They work for us. We pay them. They don't get to tell us what to do. They work for us.
I think they often forget it. And one of the things that I see, Christine, is that people get elected to the board. They say they're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to do this. And then they get elected, they get on that board, and they become co-opted by the nameless, faceless bureaucrats who really run things, who have been there forever.
Or they become enamored with their titles and their positions, and they don't want to rock the boat.
And especially in Cherry Hill, which apparently is heavy with administrators and assistant superintendents and assistants to the assistant. Okay, am I right about this, Rick?
Oh yes. And what's worse is Camden. Camden is worse. In my study, in my research.
Camden.
Yeah, this says Camden schools are worse. But yeah, Cherry Hill is they just created two more new positions. One of the positions is for the elementary superintendent, and the higher one, the high school and middle school superintendent.
You guys have pretty high taxes out there, don't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Six highest in the country.
Oh my God. Well, it's not surprising.
Camden County.
They've got all your money, so hey, they're not. It's not their money that they're paying as salaries to these additional superfluous administrators. It's your money, so
that's right. It's the people's money, and I sometimes I want to get out there and slap some of these people around and wake them up, because these assistant superintendents and these assistants to the assistant and many of the principals, let me tell you something, Christine, in New Jersey, they are very, very, very well paid.
Oh, I'm sure.
They are very well paid, and they retire with a wonderful, wonderful package. I mean, their health care is paid for the rest of their lives.
My Lord. Danny, do you remember Vince Fumo, the great senator, state senator from South Philadelphia? He coined a phrase, OPM, other people's money, which basically was, I can do a lot of things because I've got other people's money to do it with. It's
Right.
not my money. It's not coming out of my wallet. So I can be very generous with OPM. And it sounds like that's what Cherry Hill is doing. And some of the other, I mean, don't get me wrong. Philadelphia does the same thing. Pennsylvania does the same thing.
Christine, we happen to know that in Philadelphia, the Democratic City Committee gives its district leaders and ward leaders on election day what they call walk around money. Walk
Wham.
around money, WAM, WAMs.
Wham.
They call
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Take
exactly.
cash. They give them cash, walk around money. Now, what do they do with that money? Now, some of the people say, well, I'm paying for the groceries for the voters in my district.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. A
Unbelievable.
Wawa hoagie for everyone. Easy.
And didn't the state legislature of Pennsylvania, I think there was also, I don't know whether they still do it with these WIMs, that certain legislators also got WIMs, what they called district.
Yeah.
know.
And they tried to eliminate it, but the legislators were like, and the ward leaders were like, oh, no, you can't do that. Because the people were so used to it that they realized that if they didn't have the WAM, there wasn't going to be anybody who was going to be willing to work. These are not volunteers. I have to laugh sometimes when, yes, there are volunteers who work at the polls and, honorable people and everything, but it's, there's hands are getting greased and palms are getting greased. It's not completely altruistic, this working at the polls stuff.
Well, it's like what President Trump said, bad things happen in Philadelphia. Remember when he said bad things happen in Philadelphia? And then a lot of people in Philadelphia got real upset. A lot of people got real upset. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You don't realize that sometimes bad things happen in Philadelphia? I mean, it wasn't such a shocking statement to me.
We had 500 bad things happen last year, 500 homicides. I mean, more than 500 bad things. So, yeah, I mean, he was telling the truth. They were just like, oh, I've got the vapors. He actually said it out loud. Whatever.
Well, listen, Christine and Rick, we've been going for about an hour now. So I think we're going to have to bring this to an end.
Dan, can I
say
one last thing?
Real quick.
Okay, all right, and this is out to Christine. This is your homework assignment. I want you to go to the Black Lives Matter website in Philadelphia.
Do I have to?
Yes, and look under abolishment and see how they want to get rid of police and they want to get rid of the prisons. Okay, so I want you to study that as a good idea.
Rick, you'll be surprised to know perhaps that I've already seen it, and when I was doing some research for a column, and it's repellent. And they can pretend all they want that they're not for the abolition of the police, because now it's not, because even the left, Sherelle Parker, I will say this in closing very quickly. Our first female mayor of color, first female anything, mayor of Philadelphia, is not woke, is not a BLM partisan sympathizer.
Okay. Right.
And she is, because she grew up in a neighborhood in Northwest Philadelphia that was riddled with crime. The woman has a young Black son. She understands that he's at risk from other young Black men shooting each other. Mm-hmm. She's very smart. So I have a lot of hope for her, even though she is a Democrat. I think I've been, singing her praises. I think she's great.
Right.
So,
all right. But just remember the Cherry Hill schools, right? The Cherry Hill schools want to teach you that Black Lives Matter is a good social movement. Okay. That's the problem.
I think that's sunsetting, at least in Philly. I think that there's been enough pushback, especially from the top, except from our district attorney, that they realized that Black Lives Matter was a hoax, just as they realized that the Me Too movement was a hoax as well. But I agree with you. I mean, it's still, you have to excise cancer completely. You can't just get the big tumor and think it's gone, because it will. If you leave any of it left, it metastasizes. And the Black Lives Matter movement was a metastasis. So I think, but I do think that we're in a much better place now than we were right after COVID and during COVID. I think people are much more objective when they look at that. And there are a lot of Black people who do not agree with the principles of Black Lives Matter, because it is a movement that wants to destroy the nuclear family.
Right. And they're teaching, like I said, they're teaching Black Lives Matter is good in Cherry Hill schools. That's the problem.
That's horrible.
And while they're teaching that, Rick, and I want to close with this, while they are teaching that, I have in front of me the latest state assessment based on state standards and test scores of where Cherry Hill students stand. Okay? English language arts, 62% of the students were deemed proficient. That means that 38% of the students in Cherry Hill are not proficient in English language arts, not proficient within state standards. Now, the state standard range, and it's not all that difficult, is within 53% to 79%. I guess that's the grades in there, okay? So 38% are not proficient. In math, it's even worse. In math, only 48% of Cherry Hill students are proficient. We're not talking about the city of Camden now. We're talking about Cherry Hill. I've got the figures here. That means 52% are not proficient in math within a state standard range of 38 to 79%. Now, that's serious. And I think the schools had better get back to teaching the core what they're supposed to be teaching, reading, writing, and arithmetic. As we used to say, reading, writing, and arithmetic, that's the 3 R's we used to call them. Reading, writing, and arithmetic, as we used to say in Camden. Those are not impressive.
I'm with you.
And I think parents should be going to the school board meetings, and they should be asking about this. What the hell is going on here?
Right.
Because if there was one thing that Cherry Hill made its reputation on, it was outstanding schools.
Well, can I ask something? You actually raised a good point, and I know we're at the end of this, but Rick, Dan just said parents should be raising this. Have you had support from other parents? Are there people who have reached out to you and said that they
the other thing, Christine, is people are afraid also to speak up because they're afraid they're going to be called a racist, right?
Right.
But I don't think people know what Dan just said there. Like, everyone doesn't know the test score results. That's the other problem, getting the word out.
Well, that's what we've been trying to do here tonight.
Okay.
And like I say, this has been live on Facebook and Twitter. I'm going to pin it to my Facebook and Twitter pages. I invite both of you to go to my page, share it to your page. That's very important. And it's also, I'm going to put it up tomorrow on my website, dancirucci.com. And it's also at my YouTube channel on YouTube. So
great.
Christine, I think we're off to a good start with these programs. What do you think?
I think so too. And I think we should do it. I mean, this is a good time, Sunday night. I think we should make it a regular gig. We won't be able to do it weekly, but bi-weekly, I think we could manage it at the very least every month. Because it's important, and we need to, get the messages like Rick's out there. And you and I both have a fairly extensive social media presence. So while I doubt, we may not have the social media reach of Taylor Swift, we do have a pretty wide reach. So I'm sorry. I had to bring it back to Taylor.
Well, wait a minute, Christine. You may have to start singing when we come together again.
How about, I'll write because I do my own songwriting, Dan. I'll write us a theme song. I'll sing it at the beginning.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
That
I
would
will.
be so
I'll send
much
it
fun.
to you. And I have to get my old guitar. I know 5 chords, so I'll be able to accompany myself.
I love it. It's a deal.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Good night,
All right,
everybody.
thanks, guys.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Take care, everyone. Have a
Bye.
great night.